Challenging stigma. Over the last few posts, I have shared some of the ways that houseplants help my mental health. However, since my last post, I have invested time in developing an Instagram account and subsequent community links. Through this exploration, I have noticed some trends emerging, based purely on my impressions without any actual research. I have noticed that many people say that they found themselves a plant parent due to being stuck in because of lockdown due to COVID-19. Through this time, anxiety ran high, and houseplants have provided a focus. It also seems common that people have developed a love of caring for plants after a challenging life event, or just struggling with the day-to-day pressures of modern life. What I have most been in awe of in this Instagram houseplant community is how open many people are about their mental health, their struggles, and how houseplants have helped them. When I refer to this community, it is vast. I have new friends around the world. I'm loving hearing about houseplant keeping in the monsoon season in India and the challenges of humidity in New York. Seeing the same kind of plants that I am growing being grown in other people's homes around the world is amazing. It really makes me feel a sense of well-being, that despite the atrocities around the globe, there is so much good. My connection to other humans and their plants has been entirely wholesome. My faith in humanity is regularly restored. When I started the account, being a very private person and wary of social media, I was bracing myself for unpleasant comments from others. I was also pretty scared about simply how I would be received by others. I still am, in honesty, but this is unfounded so far. I expected to have some upsetting interactions or have people apply stigma and judgment to me. I told myself repeatedly that I could handle this and to practice non-attachment. It is probably best to always consider the implications of your actions before going into something. Plus, when I feel up to it, I like to challenge myself and channeling expressive energy. However, I have had precisely 0 negative, upsetting or distressing comments and exactly 10 million positive, wholesome, supporting and caring ones. I don't know what it is about houseplant lovers on Instagram, but this is amazing to me. I really am bemused that I haven't seen a single disagreement or heated exchange. Nobody seems to fall out. It has only been around 10 days, but still, by comparison, my local village Facebook group regularly has fallings out, name callings and hackles rising. What I consider to be problematic content is sometimes published. Being a Type R, EP3, car enthusiast, I have been a member of a Facebook group of fellow enthusiasts. People are often horrible to each other in there. I do recognise the contradiction of liking cars and also the environment. Those things are somewhat paradoxical, right? For the record, I have an economical car that I refuse to use most of the time now. So how come the houseplant community is so beautiful? Perhaps it's because it takes a certain type of person to be into plants and nature. Perhaps I'm purely languishing in confirmation bias. I don't know. All that I do know is I love it. Anyway, I have digressed. Mentalhealth.org.uk has a lot about how mental health can be stigmatised and collectively negatively perceived. In challenging this, it says, research shows that the best way to challenge these stereotypes is through first-hand contact with people with experience of mental health problems. Presumably, that means through sharing experiences, careful listening and being empathetic. To throw a bit of sociological imagination in there, it is about recognising a person's individual experience and how this links to wider society. See Wright Mills. Or, as Everlast put it in What It's Like, God forbid you ever had to walk a mile in their shoes, 'cause then you really might know what it's like to have to lose. Then you really might know what it's like. I love that song. So going back to the houseplant community and its or our openness about mental health, I have had several conversations with people about how they manage their mental health challenges. I have felt privileged to have people outline for me what their mental health experiences have been and how they have found and continue to find this difficult to cope with at times. I have felt listened to and connected in sharing my experiences. We have discussed how We use houseplants to support ourselves. I especially love this description by Twisted Plant Roots. I enjoy the diagnosing process. Why are the leaves turning yellow? Only to realise I've overwatered it and half the roots are busted. It's like a little hospital where I'm the receptionist, nurse and doctor and I have to manage all my patient needs. Oh, she needs an IV. This one needs quarantining. She needs an X-ray, stat, and is carried away. Take him to the ICU. We've got a delivery. The baby is coming. One more step. You're doing great. You're discharged. It's a fully realised houseplant hospital fantasy. As an aside, I do think it's important to be mindful about the language we use to describe our own mental health and the experiences of others, and to notice the normalised negative language in our vernacular. I'm trying to pick myself up on using words like bonkers and crazy as descriptive words because on reflection, I think they might be harmful. I'm not sure where the line is in terms of them being used in an endearing way and where those terms used endearingly actually normalise damaging terms. I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts about this. Time to Change have an article about the language that is used to describe mental health here. They say that it's important to be considered in the language we use, and sometimes the terms we use innocently are discriminatory. The writer of the article suggests it is on all of us to raise our awareness, noting, I really do believe the more we challenge stigma, the closer we get to gaining acceptance. All of my posts so far have been about how the houseplant hobby has helped me with my well-being. It has been a way of going from feeling empty and pointless, frozen with anxiety, having a little sense of purpose and productivity. Planting with Nick on Instagram raised what I think is a very valid point. She said that she feels like the hobby is often romanticised, especially as being a solution to all troubles. She outlined how this isn't always the case in her post. Like so many, as the world gradually locked down, I sought comfort in plants. The first thing my collection did was grow, and trust me, it grew. Every new plant felt like it healed a small part of me. The sadness for not being able to see my friends or family as much as I'd hoped, the constant heartache at the news, the desperation for normality. But after a while, I began to realise that buying plants in its own way had become an addiction. I saw plants that I desperately wanted go out of stock, and I felt like my world was collapsing around me. I've sat and wondered if I can justify yet another 10, 20, 30, even £50 plus on a plant that I know I'd have more fear of killing than enjoying. I've got home, new plant purchases in hand, and realised I hadn't even tended to my previous day's purchases. Don't get me wrong, I love having my plants, but I've seen my moods change too many times in response to the need to grow and transform my collection. Over the last few weeks, I've slowly come to realise this. I've tried to really think, do I want this plant? Why? I asked myself, is it because you've seen it on Instagram or because you genuinely think it's beautiful? Then I try to consider, does it have a home? Will it be somewhere you'll appreciate all the quirks and flaws? Long term, do you have space for how it's meant to grow in the world? My most recent plant purchase came into my life because I'm genuinely so fascinated by how it grows. Here, a mere vine can push out heart-shaped flowers of different patterns. I've enjoyed learning the science of plants, what motivates them to grow, not just to grow but to thrive. So moving forward, I'm only going to try and get plants that I feel I can fully support their growth in my home environment whilst learning from them still. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy that plant you think is beautiful on your Instagram or Facebook feed, but try to take a step back and ask yourself if you're really wanting to because everyone has it or because it serves a purpose for you. Planting with Nick also has her own blog where she shares her thoughts and experiences. You can find the link to it on her Instagram bio. See what I mean about feeling privileged to share and learn through others' sharing? I love this self-reflection and openness. Change Your Mind says the best way to challenge stigma is get informed about the facts around mental health and stigma, Get positive conversations started about mental health with friends, family, and colleagues. Learn how to recognise stigma and challenge it when you see it. Take a critical view of the way in which mental health is presented in the media or in conversations you might witness. Does it portray people fairly and respectfully, or does it resort to stereotypes? See the person, not the illness. Put yourself in the shoes of someone who is experiencing stigma. It's important not to define or judge someone by their health problems, but to see them as individuals. I'm finding that many of us in the Instagram houseplant community could tick most of those boxes. What do you think? Too long done reading version? My experience of the houseplant community on Instagram is entirely positive, often sharing our mental health experiences. I think this might be a platform we are using to challenge stigma around mental health.